everyone. Welcome back to another episode of
WHOSAY!
I'm your host, Stacey, a year 1 finance major, and with me is...
Jeevan, a year 3 law student.
My name is Isaac, I'm 27 and I'm founder of As We Move, a fitness hub for everyday folks seeking to make fitness accessible for everyone.
And my name is Glenn Lim. I'm the Chief Psychotherapist of Breakthrough Academy and Therapy Studio.
Honestly, me right now, I'm a student full-time. I also hold a few student leadership portfolios. Just balancing that has been really intense for me, and it's put a lot of pressure on me as well. I can't imagine how it would be for you guys. How's it been?
Well, all I have to say is entrepreneurship is a little bit glorified. I mean, yeah, it's every single day. There's no break. You just have to push it through, and there's no rest. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And what about yourself, Glenn?
So Isaac, I just wanted to say welcome to the real world. Because I paid this price 25 years ago. And I'm 53 years old today. I've been running our practice for the last 15 years. And also at the side, I've started the Architects of Life movement, which is really a social enterprise that reaches out to ex-offenders, and we are doing a lot of social work out there. My main stress right now is what we call being in a sandwich generation. You're neither young anymore, but neither are you that old, and we've got double the responsibilities. So I don't have kids, but because of our social work, we reach out to many families and their kids, troubled youth, and at the same time, my ailing mother as well. So we've got to look into our parents as well. So we are caught in this sandwich generation. And I think with every generation, we go through our different life stations. And each station is really, I always like to say, you cannot compare the problems that we have. Every level, you have new devils. So we just need to take it as it is and try to resolve them one by one. There's no real rest or finally arrive at a certain stage. So that's my
I guess they say
issues.
life is a journey, right?
It is a journey, yeah.
So how do you cope with these stresses in life? Like these days, what are you doing to alleviate your stress a bit?
Okay, so for myself, I rely a lot on family and relationships. I think it is the interconnectedness, being human and being in a community that is really helpful. I know of many of my clients who don't have that. Either they come from dysfunctional families or they grew up maybe a bit distant, estranged from their loved ones. And so we always prescribe to be in a healthy social context.
I agree. Sometimes when so much stress is, you don't want to be with people, but being with people is actually good for you. Like when in those stressful situations where you just want to take some time for yourself. Yes, you have your self-care timing. So then afterwards, just being in social situations, playing board games with my friends, reading, I think all these are all like being among life.
Right.
I mean, to me, it's just being among life. You may be an introvert, I think, but just being around life just keeps you not so you don't feel so alone.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, you're right. I think because life is multifaceted, right? It's not all work. They always say it's a balance of work and play, and I believe in the same thing as well. That's why I put in a lot of effort in things outside of classes as well to build student life outside of just studying, because I do understand that a lot of what makes life beautiful is the things that you do outside of work, where the relationships you build with the people around you, the experiences you have, be it traveling or the simple things as well. Even say helping someone in need, perhaps old lady crossing the street. Just help her out. It brightens your day, but it makes you feel so much better,
good.
right?
Yeah.
Doing good.
It's small little acts of kindness every single day, right?
Yeah, exactly. So these tiny little things that you do in your day just kind of adds that little bit of spark, makes you feel a little bit better, and then all of these small things just add up.
Yeah, I always believe that every time when you go out, you should strive to at least put a smile on someone's face. Whether it's through the server that's giving you your food or drink. I mean, they're all service stuff.
Yeah, it's like paying forward,
Yes.
It always returns back to you. Actually, I wanted to hear, if I may ask, how you guys cope. I know it's not easy. I know the demands compared to my generation, the pressure that you face, how do you cope?
Personally, I intentionally take time off. So when I'm in like a very fast pace, like chasing after deadlines, I take time, I step aside. I usually visit like a national gallery, slow down and appreciate some art around
Slowing
me.
down.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is what we call me time, right?
Yes.
Create some pockets of me time. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think in a similar fashion, I also have to create my own me time. I know that when you're constantly focused on work, it all builds up in your head, and then the gears just grind to a halt when there's too much of information overload.
It's like the app when you have to clear the
Yeah,
cache.
exactly. Yes. So you got to do that for your brain sometimes, And then for me, like I find like just there are days when you just like leave everything, just put your work aside and just go out and do something else. Healthiest cope I find is going to the gym because it's time that I'm actually investing in myself to make myself fitter, stronger. But then at the same time, what it does is it's also a time when my mind just focuses on something that's completely other than studies and any of the pressures and whatnot that I'm facing. So it's
Just engaging.
exactly, yeah. So it's for me, I find that's my best cope at this time.
Yep.
I used to like just taking my bike out and going for a bike ride, that sort of thing. These
It would be very. You would have cleared your mind, wouldn't it?
Yeah. That is how I discovered that I could release stress through exercise.
It also depends where you go to. Singapore is so dense. So you
It
must
is.
find the right route.
No, you
get
go
more
out.
stress. Yeah.
The cars all horn at you. And
Actually,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm so appreciative what you all shared about the way you deal with, your daily stressors. Are you the norm, or you're the rare exception?
who can
What
find.
do your peers do? I mean, I know of coming from my practice, more and more young people are seeking help for mental health issues, etc. But what is it like down here at the U?
That is a very loaded question.
What do your peers do?
I think I can perhaps relate a few of my friends what they do. A lot of them, of course, they like me. A lot of my friends actually I made through the gym, so a lot of them have the same copes as me. A lot of them also they take time out to just hang out with friends over dinner. These are I guess the healthy copes. But then I find a lot of folks also generally they cope through student life activities. The CCAs and stuff like that. It's their time away from studies. And it helps them in that regard while perhaps giving them a chance to apply a new trade or learn a new sport. So they have it's perhaps unintended for it to be like a stress relief, but a happy accident, a happy by effect.
I think that, Jeevan shared like the positive,
Yeah.
nice ways of coping, but
Yep.
I hear some friends who turn to drinking a lot.
Okay.
They like to party and they like to drink sometimes. Some of them do a bit of gambling here and there.
Oh, wow.
Amongst other friends, yeah, they like to play like mahjong or cards, and then they find a bit of stress relief by doing that. So yeah, so there's
Nothing wrong.
there's nothing wrong with them,
yeah.
but yeah,
Unless it crosses into the unhealthy zone.
yeah,
Mhm.
agree.
Speaking of which,
Which.
unhealthy. I
Yeah.
think both Isaac and myself, we do have an unhealthy and a very dark past. I think Isaac, take it away.
Well, I've been incarcerated twice.
Uh,
Mic drop. Can I drop this? No, okay. So right. So I've been to rehab twice. So I've been.
okay.
So the story was good, short one. Like I've been abusing drugs since I was 18. Yes, 18. Yeah, you can catch the story elsewhere, the articles elsewhere. But yeah, I went in twice, and then yeah, and I came out, and then I worked with Glenn in Architects of
Okay.
Life, and then now I come out. I've learned so much, and I'm a little bit more stable, and now I've founded my own fitness studio. Yes, and make
Well,
this accessible for everyone.
I'm glad you ended up on this more positive path, but That was a bit of scary information.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, like what you said just now, life is a journey, right? So it's
I
been
guess.
almost 2 years. April will mark the 2 years since I'm out.
Congrats,
But
man.
congratulations.
Yes, but the road hasn't been the best, the easiest as well to walk. You know, triggers are abound. Many people, especially post COVID, the attitude towards drugs is a lot more. What's the word that you guys use?
Permissible.
Permissive.
Permissible.
Yeah, more permissible. And when your friends are overseas, and when you're overseas, and you know, temptations are everywhere.
Wow.
It is not easy.
Wow.
But I mean, I'm blessed to have so many people who care for me, who love me, and you know, one of my recovery specialists just came down to the studio to conduct a mindfulness session for our team. And it's been a long time since I've practiced mindfulness, like at least one more than a year. But afterwards, I felt so clear and calm, and yeah,
It's a
clearing the cache,
healthier.
like
It's
you
a,
mentioned.
oh,
Yes,
that's. I'm glad. It's also it's a healthier coping mechanism, right?
indeed.
And honestly, you know, the things you mentioned, temptation, access, it's very real actually, because even in my exposure, I guess, you know, the people around me that I've met off and on, there are these temptations that exist. You know, some of them are actually or have abused drugs. Some of them, most people, you know, their vice is drinking, of course. I don't drink. So I've stayed like very far away from these sorts of things. And I feel like that probably makes it a bit easier for me to say no. But for other people who have less of a barrier, that temptation being there, the ease of access from having friends who, you know, carry some of these drugs, it just makes it so much easier to get it and you know, get
There's
started
so
on
many
it.
levels of access, you know, when it comes to peers, especially there's context of situation, the different situations you put yourself in. When you're drinking, how hard is it just take another pill? If you're drinking, how hard is it to drink an
Yeah.
additional thing? If you're vaping, how hard is it to puff something else? If you're smoking, how hard is it to smoke something else?
Wow.
You know, these are all the access points that I think that our government is so worried about, because of all these levels of access. You know, every single access brings you to the next one. It's not too big a gap. You say you stay far away from drinking, so it's tough that it's very easy for you to say no. But for someone who's already drinking, and then
Yeah.
for them to drink something else, for them to puff something else, for them to smoke something else, it's a lot. It's just the barrier to entry is just that much thinner.
Yeah. It sounds kind of scary actually when you put it like that, but it's very real, and I've seen it actually happen. You know, people like just it's blown my mind at times just how easy it is to convince certain people to go down this path, and honestly, on some level, some of them even glorify it, which I think our guests today are very clear is not what it is. That's just not the right way to frame consumption of drugs at all. And actually, while we're talking about consumption, what got you guys started into it? You know, what was your trigger factor that made you guys go down this path?
Okay, maybe I should share a little bit. Isaac's story is really inspiring. I always encourage people to tune into his other podcasts and other articles to read about his journey of transformation. Mine was slightly different. I'm 53. My own episode happened like 30 years ago, more than 30 years ago. And that landscape, that historical backdrop is a very different one. We don't have the kind of resources we have today. We don't have podcasts like this to build awareness. We don't have the kind
Mindfulness
of
spaces like this.
yeah. And society was much more stigmatized back then. I mean, they would stigmatize, you know, people with a different kind of background or were going through a difficult journey. So when I was arrested for drugs, and that was probably 95, I think it was around that period, for cannabis consumption as well as importation. It was a big hoo-ha because my story was one of, it wasn't just consumption or possession. I was actually bringing drugs back into our country, Singapore, through the Woodlands checkpoint from Malaysia. So I was actually in this whole distribution chain, and I
Wow.
was actually selling it to my friends and all that. So I was arrested, and my charge was an importation charge. So that carried with it a life sentence or a death sentence. And
Right.
as you would probably, I mean, if you were in my shoes back then, you would probably understand how I would feel. My whole life my whole world collapsed. It was my wake up call. But I thank God today on hindsight that I had that wake up call, because I have friends, back then my peers were no longer around. Had there been some form of intervention in their lives, probably they would still be around today, but they died from overdose or they were sentenced to death in prison. Sooner or later, I think such things will catch up with you. So anyway, I had that wake up call, and I still remember that I was in like a halfway house today as a rehab center awaiting my trial. I had that 4 months to get my act together, to get myself clean up. I had a lawyer to help to mitigate and help to represent me. Actually, all he could do was just plead for leniency, because all the evidence was there and guilty as charged. I was just awaiting my sentence. So by some miracle, my charge was actually dropped to a first-time possession charge. I got away with just 6 months. But that wake-up call alone helped me recalibrate my whole life compass. And of course, today I'm doing the things I do in part because of that wake-up call. Had I been sentenced and still alive, I'd probably be serving a life sentence. And till today, 30 years on. So I always say that I'm living on borrowed time. It's no longer my time. And so I better do something worthwhile with this time, right? And so that's why I created such platforms and social impact work in our country today. And I'm very glad that people's mindsets have kind of shifted, it's kind of changed. Not so much into accepting or condoning those unhealthy activities, but more in accepting the changes that people are going through, and supporting people who want to recover. So that's a little bit of my background.
So it sounds a lot like you were in an environment where your friends were, in perhaps in the business of trafficking and consuming as well.
Yeah.
So was that what made it easy, or well, I wouldn't say easy, but was that what allowed you that entry into this sort of a lifestyle?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There were a couple of factors. Today, as I work with people who go through their own struggles, usually it's twofold, two factors. Your internal factors and, of course, your external influences. So for me, it was those exact two. Externally, because I was in the so-called night scene, I was playing music in the clubs, the bars, so I was in the music scene. And stereotypically, when you are hanging around in those places, you'll be exposed to all kinds of vices, and drugs being one of those, because they said that, if you consume it, you get a certain creativity rush, get high, play better music, I don't know, right? But I joined them because of the peer pressure. So those were external factors. Internally, I was going through stuff. I was very estranged from my family. I had a lot of run-ins with my parents. I ran away from home. In fact, I quit school. I was kicked out from school when I was in secondary school. So those things, those pillars and structures just crashed, and I was a very lost boy. I attempted, to take my life a couple of times during those times, and I had no support. So I turned to friends. Friends were doing this as a lifestyle. I just joined them just to be part of the lifestyle.
And how about for Isaac? How did you get into taking drugs?
I agree with what Glenn said, internal and external, right? So I was introduced to drugs by someone. Okay, so the story is I was selling essential oil on the carousel, and then afterwards I went to this hotel where where I was going to deliver, someone who bought the essential oil. So I delivered, and then he asked me how many bottles of essential oil do I have, and I said I have a whole carton. He said okay, he will buy the whole carton, and if I were to take a puff. So I'm like, oh, I mean, at that point of time, with this instant, I can clear my stock, I can restock, and this instant, like a few $100s in cash, Sure, okay, so I will take a puff. So I took a puff, and then the feeling stuck with me. Yeah, so I don't know what it was, but now I know it's meth. But anyways, it didn't really, I wasn't really addicted at all. Like, I didn't really think much about it afterwards. Not until COVID. Yeah, COVID when I had no life purpose, when my life compass was in disarray because of circuit breaker. I ORD'd into circuit breaker, so there was nothing I could do. Uni was online. I dropped out of uni afterwards because I couldn't take the online lessons. Me being ADHD, I'm like, I need to be in person. I need to be with people. I need to just be with life. And at that point of time, there was just no life. Yeah. So and then I remembered the feeling, and that's when I went back, and then I descended into a spiral. Yeah, like so many times. There's so many things that drugs, meth in particular, does to you in terms of your friends, yourself, your social network, so many things. And for me personally, I lost a lot of friends. Whether is it through like they've moved on with their lives because they know that I'm not catching up with them. Because when you're on meth, you just neglect everything else. You're just looking for the next fix. Yeah, and not just that, I also had attended 2 or 3 funerals in the last 2 years, ever since I came out, for friends who've overdosed or suicide while they are high. There's so many things that it affects you that you don't know when you are on it. But everyone else can see because everyone else is sober and you're not. It's how someone is drunk and you are not. You'll be like, what is this guy doing? what funny, what weird thing is this guy doing? But you can see, and when you're sober, you just see with clear eyes. Yeah, it's a post high clarity that a lot of times we in that moment we don't see. So when I started to do mindfulness, we started to take a step back and observe. Okay, and we don't want to be so involved and getting carried away by those triggers. Yeah, it's like that pause between thinking about it and actually taking it. That few seconds or few minutes is what makes a relapse and a non-relapse.
Actually, when you say that, it reminds me of a friend, a really good friend that I have, who his journey is one that baffled me until now, because he actually came out of incarceration just the same for consumption. I think he was caught for possession, and he was sentenced as well, and he was in rehab for a while. And then I met him in uni. And in my first semester with him as a classmate, he used to keep telling me, bro, I can't focus, I'm like, the teacher's explaining, I don't know what he's saying, I need so much extra time to understand. I don't know if I can keep up with uni. This was him post-incarceration, post-rehab, having served his sentence. And then by semester 2, I was the one taking notes from him, because that's how much the drugs had affected his brain and his cognitive ability. But then, putting himself back in the studying shoes, the student shoes, his brain was able to, I guess, rewire itself, and he was able to get back to form, right? And then after uni, he started working. He graduated, so after he graduated, he started working. And then the stresses of life, competing with his peers, stress of that sort of work environment where everyone's gunning for that one promotion spot, made him relapse. And he went back to it. And it always baffled me, because why when you've seen the progress that you've made from there, when you've been able to compare how badly it affected you, took away your brain's abilities, and then you also have that front of yourself where you were so good at your studies, you were topping the class. You can see that there is such a big difference when you don't consume, when you build yourself back up.
Yes.
Why do you go back? It always baffled me. And now when you explain it like that, when you talk about how your own thought process works, how easy it is to just go turn to that good feeling that drugs give you, it makes sense.
I always see that. I always see like addiction as like imagine your brain has many pathways, right? So there are some that are well trodden and some who are not. That are not. So taking drugs, you kind of create this shortcut between pleasure and pain. So you want to escape from pain, you want to go to pleasure. So you create this shortcut there, and addiction gives you that shortcut, right? I mean, in other ways, you can go to gym, you can go to sports, you can go for a run, but all these all have a higher
There is
effort.
that yeah,
There's a higher effort, and when you come out of addiction, when you go into recovery from addiction, the goal is really to make that path less apparent. But it will always be there. You see, like everything, even a lighter that is slightly different, a windproof lighter or something like that, gives triggers because it reminds you of those.
Oh, wow.
The physical sensations, all the different sensations that you feel, because you know that what this represents is that it's a path to pleasure.
Oh, wow.
And that is so scary. It's still scary now. I mean, I have friends who don't go home because their room is the trigger. And so I have a friend that stays with me right now because he doesn't, when he goes home, he just feels like using. And I have a friend that finds work overseas, keeps himself occupied through work and work and work. But because Singapore is his trigger, so because of his parents and family and whatnot, and they always try to put themselves out of those situations so that they don't get the triggers. And that's the scary part about it, is that you never fully recover. You're always in recovery.
Yep.
There's no such thing as a past drug addict because the addiction is always there. I'm not sure in addiction science if that's the case.
So what Isaac is saying is very important because it's the concept of the forbidden fruit syndrome. You've tasted it, and all you need is once. So you've got that path of experience, and it's lodged permanently. So it's not something that you can wean away from. It's a choice and a daily choice to say, no, I won't take the shortcut. So the clients in recovery who are the most vulnerable are those who are familiar with that, the forbidden fruit, as well as when they don't recognize triggers and they don't manage those triggers. So they become what we call predisposed. And for many of us who have came out from a particular episode or we are in recovery, and if we don't take care of to evaluate and to strategize how we are going to prevent those triggers from happening or to manage them healthily, we are always very susceptible to what we call relapse. Recidivism rate, by the way, in Singapore for drugs is on an average about 2 or 3 times. So when an addict or prisoner is released from prison the first time, it's not too far-fetched or wrong to say, hey, see you again. 2, 3 times, that's on average. And I've known of addicts 5 times, relapse 6, 7.
But on site, we never know when's their last as well.
So I guess that's why the prisons have taken they've changed their stance, like you mentioned, right? Like it used to be all about punishment. Now it's more about rehabilitation because they probably at this point recognize that it's not as easy as just saying no. It's not as easy as it's wrong, so avoid it. So really, it's
addicts need to be treated, not punished.
Right.
So it is a serious health issue, and you need to be seen as people who are dealing with sickness, so to speak. Yeah. You guys okay?